As the year winds down, Canadians are supposed to be relieved. Another 12 months in the books, we survived the whole mess. Another year where we're told the system held and all of our institutions work and, oh yeah, the adults are in charge. Not like those awful, childish Trudeau years. But when you look back honestly at what the Carney government did this year in a very short amount of time, that reassurance doesn't really hold. This was the year the Carney government showed how comfortable it has become with power it doesn't have to explain.
Canada will be a police state by Christmas if Parliament passes bills C2, C8, and C9 in their current form. C2 is the Strong Borders Act. It should be called the Strong Surveillance Act. It empowers Canada Post to open letter mail without a warrant. It criminalizes the use of cash in amounts greater than 10,000. And it empowers a vast army of government officials, not just police, to conduct warrantless searches of the computers and cell phones of Canadians. It is a massive invasion of privacy. It's extremely dangerous.
Let's start with Bill C2, a bill sold as routine, financial, housekeeping, and strong borders. Inside it were provisions allowing the government to access your personal records, though, without a warrant. Medical records, therapeutic records, postal information, material that used to be protected by the basic assumption that the state has to justify itself before intruding into your private life. But no, if you cross the border, they were going to have all of that. And these assumptions that you have privacy, well, they're eroding quietly but procedurally. That's the way these things usually happen. Later in the year came Bill C9.
Religious freedom is under attack at the hands of this Liberal government.
I know I'm part of the Christian community, and with many Christians across Canada are concerned about, we've talked about the threats that it really poses to, the very Bible itself. Do Christians, do they need to be concerned about this legislation? Does it really threaten the Bible and free speech in Canada?
They should be very afraid. Every faith leader should be very afraid as to what this Liberal government, with the support of the Bloc Québécois, wishes to do. As I indicated, religious freedom is under attack at the hands of this Liberal government. So absolutely, they need to speak out loud and clear. Those members of the religious organizations across this country in Liberal-held ridings, in bloc ridings, need to reach out to their members to express very, very clearly they do not support this attack on religious freedom.
This one, of course, went straight at religious expression because you have to really crack down on the people who hold something higher in their hearts than just the government. Under the banner of combating hate speech, the Carney government has opened the door to regulating what can be taught, preached, or expressed from our pulpits inside of our churches. That used to be a red line in Canada. The state did not insert itself into doctrine. It did not supervise sermons. It did not decide which beliefs were acceptable, but that line, it moved this year. In fact, I'm not even sure that line exists anymore. And none of this exists in a vacuum because Canadians already know what the Carney government is willing to do when it decides someone is a problem. We watched it during the Freedom Convoy. Sure, it wasn't Mark Carney, but he was whispering in everybody's ear at the time. Bank accounts were frozen, credit cards shut off, people locked out of their own money without charges or trials. Social credit schemes, right? The justification was urgency and public safety. And the precedent, well, of course, it was permanent. So when the Carney government now pushes limits on cash transactions, again through that first Bill C2, Canadians don't need a white paper to understand what that means. You see, cash is harder to track, harder to freeze, harder to control. Digital money isn't, so stop the cash.
And then we look at Part 11 of the bill, which bans cash transactions over $10,000. It does not put a reporting requirement. It does not restrict it. It does not add bureaucracy or red tape. It is a clear ban. I will read directly from the bill. every person or entity that is engaged in a business, a profession, or the solicitation of charitable financial donations from the public commits an offense if the person or entity accepts a cash payment, donation, or deposit of $10,000 or more in a single transaction or in a prescribed series of related transactions that total $10,000 or more. Now, I mean, after 10 years of economic mismanagement, $10,000 is a regular haul at the grocery store, Mr. Speaker. But $10,000, this may seem like an amount, as the Liberals like to say, that, well, no one is dealing in that. No one is going around and dealing in $10,000 transactions unless they have something to hide. I represent a lot of rural and smaller communities in my riding. It is not uncommon for someone to go and buy a used vehicle, to buy a farm truck, to buy a new piece of equipment for $10,000, $15,000. And you may say, as the Liberals do, well, why would anyone need to do that? Well, we live in a free society where we do not need to justify our decision to engage in transactions with legal tender to the government. And I'm very aware of the fact that as I speak, the federal government, the Liberal government, is actively fighting in court against a federal court decision that found its use of the Emergencies Act was illegal in 2022. This is a government that unlawfully and unconstitutionally froze people's bank accounts without due process and without oversight. Now, that sent a chill throughout the country as people realized that this is a government that would use its power without regard for the law. So I do not accept that this government is permitted to say, just trust us, with putting a further restriction in place on how Canadians transact. And this is incredibly important. The Bank of Canada, which the Prime Minister used to run, has been advocating for central bank digital currency. Again, something that puts government more in control and more able to monitor the transactions that Canadians choose to undertake. There are many reasons that people would use cash. It does not mean, and in fact, in most cases that I'm aware of, it has nothing to do with law breaking. It's simply because of convenience, avoiding staggering credit card fees, the ability to transact and ensure that the local farmer's market, the person selling the vehicle in your riding, in your neighborhood, whatever it is able to do so free of government interference. So this is a bill that, while I am grateful it's dealing with some issues at the border that we have long been calling for solutions for as Conservatives, it is taking a very broad brush, and in doing so, treating ordinary law-abiding Canadians as though they are criminals, as though they have something that they must hide from the government, that they must be doing something wrong simply because, like anyone else who identifies as quote-unquote old school, is simply using cash. What other legal things is the government planning to regulate or restrict?
Governments that trust citizens don't restrict cash. Governments that plan to manage behavior do, though. Thankfully, the Conservatives staved off the snooping and the attacks on the cash for now.
It's nice to be able to deliver some good news, finally. Roman Baber, Conservative Member of Parliament, the Liberals are backing down on Bill C-2, that's the Strong Borders Act. You remember that Conservatives had serious objections about opening mail without a warrant or using a backdoor to snoop on the activity of Canadians online without a warrant. Well, we learn now that the Liberals will not be able to get it through. They will have to bifurcate, to separate the bill in two. They will be introducing a new border bill on Friday. But this is a huge win for our Conservative team and leader Pierre Poilievre to defend the civil liberty of Canadians. I am really, really pleased with this result.
Taken together, this year wasn't about any single anti-freedom bill. It was about direction. Less privacy, less financial autonomy, less space for belief that falls outside of the official accepted government ideology. That's the record, friends. That's what's happened this year. And as the year ends, the danger isn't that Canadians still disagree about things. The danger is that they might get used to knowing they aren't allowed to disagree at all. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. In 2026, I hope our Rebel News journalists are out in the field more, and we can do that with your help by going to rebelfieldreports.com. Again, that's rebelfieldreports.com. Keep our journalists in the field doing the work nobody else will.